The massive War Council chamber aboard the Coalition flagship Times Stellar Dominion Times buzzed with conversation in 100 different languages. Representatives from across the Galactic Coalition gathered around the holographic star map that dominated the center of the room. Blue dots marked Coalition territories, while angry red showed the advancing Zarathi swarm. Commander Vex Thor of the Krellian Empire stood tall on his 4 legs, his chitinous armor gleaming under the chamber's lights. His mandibles clicked with amusement as he watched the newest addition to the Coalition take their seats at the far end of the table. Humans, small, soft creatures with only 2 legs and no natural weapons worth mentioning. I still cannot believe we're considering this, Vex Thor said to his aide, making no effort to lower his voice. The mighty Coalition, reduced to recruiting primitive species who've barely mastered interstellar travel. Admiral Chen Wei kept her face neutral as she heard the comment. The Chinese officer had been selected to represent Earth's united military forces precisely because of her ability to remain calm under provocation. Beside her, Colonel Marcus Thompson of the American Marine Corps and Major Priya Sharma of the Indian Special Forces maintained similar professional composure. The Coalition's supreme commander, a crystalline being known as Luminarch Prime, called the meeting to order. Its form shifted between transparency and opacity as it spoke through harmonic vibrations. The Zarathi have taken 3 more systems this cycle. Our conventional forces continue to fail against their hive mind coordination and biological weaponry. Perhaps if we had more competent allies, suggested General Korthax of the Vendari Legion, his 6 eyes focusing on the human delegation. Instead of wasting time with species who still use projectile weapons, Thompson's jaw tightened, but Chen placed a warning hand on his arm. They had expected this. Humanity was the newest and technologically least advanced member of the Coalition. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had something far more valuable than plasma cannons or quantum shields. They had 10,000 years of warfare experience on the most hostile training ground in the galaxy, Earth. The hologram shifted to show the planet Verdania 7, a crucial mining world that supplied rare elements for Coalition ship drives. The planet appeared as a sphere of green and blue, covered in dense jungles and treacherous swamps. The Zarathi had taken it 3 months ago, and every Coalition attempt to retake it had failed. Verdania's environment makes conventional warfare impossible, Luminarch Prime explained. The jungle canopy blocks aerial surveillance. The humid atmosphere interferes with our energy weapons. The terrain is impassable for our mechanized units. We've lost 12 battalions trying to establish a foothold. The Zarathi are jungle-adapted creatures, added Subcommander Telos of the Arcturian fleet. They move through the vegetation like ghosts. Our thermal sensors can't track them. Our motion detectors are useless with all the wildlife. It's like fighting shadows. Chen stood slowly, drawing the attention of the assembled commanders. With respect, Supreme Commander, Earth requests permission to deploy a specialized unit to Verdania 7. The chamber erupted in laughter. Even the normally stoic Luminarch Prime seemed to flicker with amusement. Your Earth soldiers. Vex Nor's mandibles spread in what passed for a grin among his species. Against the Zarathi? They'll be digested within hours. What could humans possibly offer that our advanced forces cannot provide? Demanded Korthax. Your species has been spacefaring for barely 50 years. We have been fighting wars among the stars for millennia. Chen remained standing, waiting for the laughter to die down. When it finally did, she spoke with quiet confidence. You're right. We're new to space. But we're not new to jungles. And we're certainly not new to war. She touched her datapad, and the hologram changed to show Earth. The image zoomed in on a region of dense rainforest. The Amazon, one of many jungle environments on our world where humans have fought for thousands of years. Vietnam, Burma, the Congo, Guadalcanal, places where technology means nothing and everything depends on adaptation, stealth, and the will to survive. Primitive tribal conflicts, scoffed Telos. Hardly comparable to interstellar warfare. Thompson stood now, his weathered face showing the scars of combat. Primitive? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. While your species were developing in single biomes on peaceful worlds, humans were fighting in every environment imaginable. Deserts that burn, tundra that freezes, mountains that steal your breath, and jungles that try to kill you with every step. Major Sharma added her voice. You say the Zarathi move like ghosts? So do our jungle fighters. You say technology fails? We've learned to fight without it. You say the terrain is hostile? We've trained in worse. The alien commanders exchanged glances of disbelief and disdain. How could these hairless apes possibly think they could succeed where the Coalition's finest had failed? Luminarch Prime's form solidified slightly, indicating deep thought. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral Chen? Give us one company, 120 soldiers from Earth's various jungle warfare specialists, British Jungle Warfare School graduates, Brazilian CIGS commandos, Malaysian jungle trackers, American Green Berets, Indian Ghatak commandos. We'll insert quietly, establish a foothold, and prove that humans can contribute to this alliance. One company against an entire Zarathi occupation force? Vex Nor's laughter boomed through the chamber. It would be slaughter. Yes. Chen agreed calmly. It would be. For the Zarathi. The boldness of the statement shocked the room into silence. Even among warrior cultures, such confidence bordered on insanity. Korthax leaned forward, his 6 eyes narrowing. You realize if you fail, Earth's membership in the Coalition will be reconsidered? We cannot afford to carry dead weight in this war. We won't fail, Thompson said simply. Luminarch Prime considered for a long moment. The Coalition was losing the war, that much was undeniable. Traditional tactics had proven useless on Verdania's 7th. Perhaps it was time for something untraditional. Very well, the Supreme Commander announced. Earth will have its chance. One company. Standard Coalition supplies only. No special equipment or reinforcements. You have 30 cycles to show results. We'll need only 20, Chen replied. As the meeting adjourned, the alien commanders filed out, most shaking their heads or making sounds of amusement in their various ways. The humans were signing their own death warrant, they believed. The jungles of Verdania's 7th had swallowed entire armies. What chance did one company of primitive soldiers have? In the corridor outside, Vexnor approached the human delegation. Up close, he towered over them, his natural armor thick enough to stop most projectile weapons. I almost pity you, he said. The Zarathi are not like the simple predators of your Earth. They are intelligent, they are coordinated, they are perfectly adapted to their environment. Your soldiers will die screaming in the dark. Colonel Thompson looked up at the alien warrior and smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Commander, I once spent 6 months in the Colombian jungle hunting cartel soldiers who knew every tree, every stream, every hidden path. They had the advantage of terrain, numbers, and local support. Do you know what happened to them? Vexnor's mandibles clicked uncertainly. They learned that the jungle might be their home, but war is ours. 3 days later, Earth's response force assembled on the orbital platform above Verdania 7th. They didn't look like much to the Coalition observers. No powered armor like the Krellians. No energy shields like the Arcturians. Just fabric uniforms in patterns that seemed to shift and blend even in the harsh lighting of the platform. Captain James Ghost Morrison of the British SAS studied the aerial reconnaissance of Verdania the 7th. The jungle was triple canopy, so thick that sunlight never reached the ground in most places. Perfect. He'd trained in worse in Belize. Beside him, Sergeant First Class Maria Rodriguez checked her equipment one more time. The American Green Beret had spent half her career in the jungles of Central America. The humidity readings from Verdania 7th reminded her of Panama during the rainy season. She felt almost homesick. Around them, the rest of the company made similar preparations. They were a mixed unit, drawn from Earth's most elite jungle warfare forces. Every one of them had spent years learning to fight in the green hell. They spoke different languages, came from different cultures, but they all understood one thing. In the jungle, you adapted or you died. Major Vikram Singh would be leading them. The Indian officer had earned his reputation in the forests of Kashmir and the jungles of the northeast. He gathered his international team for one final briefing. "The coalition thinks we're going to die down there," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the platform. "They think their technology makes them superior. They think we're primitives, playing at war." He paused, looking at each soldier in turn. "They're about to learn why humans are the apex predators of Earth. We didn't evolve claws or fangs or armor. We evolved something far more dangerous, the ability to adapt, to learn, and to turn any environment into our hunting ground. The Zerathi have held Verdania 7 for 3 months. They've repelled everything the Coalition has thrown at them. Energy weapons, orbital bombardments, mechanized assaults, all failures. You know why? Because they're fighting the jungle instead of in it," called out Lieutenant Chen Yao of the Chinese Special Forces. "Exactly," Singh confirmed. "The Coalition treats the jungle like an obstacle. We know better. The jungle isn't our enemy. It's our ally, our camouflage, our weapon." He activated a holographic display showing the target area. "We insert here, at grid reference 779. Intelligence suggests minimal Zerathi presence. They don't expect anyone to land in the deepest part of the jungle. From there, we move to establish contact and begin operations." "Rules of engagement, sir?" asked Corporal Davies of the Australian SASR. Singh smiled grimly. "We're here to prove a point. The Zerathi think they own that jungle. We're going to teach them they're just renting it. From us." The dropship pilots, members of the insectoid Threx species, were nervous as they prepared to enter Verdania 7's atmosphere. They'd lost too many craft to Zerathi anti-air biological weapons, living creatures that could leap impossibly high and tear through hull plating. "Stay low and fast," Morrison instructed. "Drop us and get out. We won't need extraction for a while." "You won't need extraction ever," one pilot clicked. "No one survives the surface for more than days." Rodriguez checked her rifle one more time. It was a simple chemical projectile weapon by Coalition standards, primitive and outdated. But it wouldn't malfunction in the humidity. It wouldn't give away their position with energy discharge. And the ammunition could be crafted from local materials if necessary. "Beginning descent," the pilot announced. Through the viewports, they watched Verdania 7 grow larger. The planet was beautiful from orbit, a jewel of emerald and sapphire. But beauty in nature often came with teeth. As they broke through the cloud layer, the true scope of the jungle became apparent. It stretched from horizon to horizon, an endless sea of green broken only by winding rivers and the occasional mountain peak. Somewhere beneath that canopy, the Zerathi waited. The humans looked at each other and saw the same expression on every face. Not fear. Not concern. Anticipation. They were going home. The dropship shuddered as it hit the lower atmosphere. Anti-aircraft spores, fired from Zerathi biocannons, burst around them in clouds of acidic vapor. The pilot cursed in his own language, diving and weaving between the threats. 30 seconds to drop zone," he announced, his voice tight with fear. Singh stood, grabbing the overhead rail. "Final checks. Remember, we're not here to fight the jungle. We're here to become it. Move like ghosts, strike like thunder, vanish like smoke. Show these aliens why humans survived and thrived on a death world." The dropship's bay doors opened, revealing the jungle canopy rushing past below. The humid air hit them like a physical force, thick with the scent of vegetation and decay. To the Coalition forces, it was oppressive, alien, hostile. To the humans, it was perfect. Green light, go, go, go. One by one, Earth's elite jungle fighters repelled into the green hell below. The Coalition observers watching from orbit shook their heads sadly. The poor primitives didn't stand a chance. They had no idea how wrong they were. As the last human disappeared beneath the canopy and the dropship fled back to orbit, the jungle of Verdania 7 fell silent. The Zerathi sentries in the area detected the intrusion, their hive mind buzzing with anticipation of easy prey. But something was different about these intruders. They didn't crash through the undergrowth like the Krellians. They didn't announce their presence with energy weapons like the Arcturians. They simply vanished. For the first time in 3 months, the Zerathi felt something they hadn't experienced since taking the planet: uncertainty. The hunt was about to begin, and for once, the Zerathi weren't sure who was the hunter and who was the prey. The jungle swallowed Alpha Team whole. Within seconds of hitting the ground, the 12-person squad had melted into the undergrowth, leaving no trace of their passing. The humid air pressed against them like a living thing. But unlike the coalition forces who had come before, the humans welcomed it. Sergeant Rodriguez moved through the dense vegetation with practiced ease, her feet finding purchase on roots and fallen logs without conscious thought. Behind her, Private Kim from the South Korean Special Forces matched her pace, his eyes scanning the canopy above. They communicated through hand signals, a language older than any alien technology. The first Zerathi patrol never knew what hit them. Rodriguez spotted the heat shimmer first, a subtle distortion in the air that betrayed the aliens' natural camouflage. The Zerathi were impressive, she had to admit. Their chameleon-like skin could match any background, and their 6 limbs allowed them to move through the trees like oversized spiders. But they had one fatal flaw: they moved like predators who had never been prey. She held up a closed fist, and the team froze. Not just stopped moving, froze. Humans had learned long ago that in the jungle, stillness was invisibility. Even their breathing slowed to match the rhythm of the forest around them. The Zerathi patrol passed within meters of their position. 6 aliens, moving in their typical formation. 4 on the ground. 2 in the trees. They communicated through pheromone releases, undetectable to most species. But Corporal Patel, trained in the jungles of northeast India, had noticed something crucial during their descent. The local insects reacted to the pheromones, creating subtle patterns in their movement. He tapped Rodriguez's shoulder twice. Enemy communication detected. The ambush was textbook human jungle warfare. No energy weapons to announce their position. No grand battle cries. Just sudden, lethal efficiency. Rodriguez's suppressed rifle coughed twice, the sound no louder than a branch breaking. The rear guard Zerathi dropped, green ichor leaking from precise headshots. Before the others could react, the rest of Alpha Team struck. Private Thompson, no relation to the colonel, had grown up hunting alligators in the Louisiana bayou. He emerged from the mud-covered depression where he'd been lying, driving his combat knife into the soft joint between a Zerathi's chest plates. The alien's death scream was cut short by a hand over its breathing vents. Kim took out one of the tree dwellers with a thrown blade that would have made his ancestors proud. The weapon found the narrow gap in the alien's natural armor with surgical precision. In 12 seconds, it was over. 6 Zerathi dead, 0 human casualties, and most importantly, no alarm raised. Rodriguez activated her short-range communicator, knowing the dense canopy would prevent long-range detection. Alpha Team to Ghost. First contact successful. 6 tangos down. Miles away, Captain Morrison received the message with grim satisfaction. Around him, the other teams were reporting similar successes. The Zerathi were learning a harsh lesson. In the jungle, technology and natural weapons meant nothing compared to patience, stealth, and the refined brutality of human warfare. Major Singh had established their forward operating base in a network of caves hidden behind a waterfall. The constant rush of water masked any sounds, and the spray dispersed heat signatures. It was a trick as old as human guerrilla warfare, and one the high-tech coalition forces had never considered. Report, Singh ordered as the team leaders gathered. Charlie Team eliminated a supply convoy, reported Lieutenant Chen. Minimal resistance. The Zerathi are still moving in predictable patterns. They're used to enemies who announce themselves, added Captain Delacroix of the French Foreign Legion. Energy weapons, mechanized units, orbital strikes. They've never faced an enemy who refuses to fight on their terms. Singh nodded, studying the rough map they'd been building from ground reconnaissance. The coalition's orbital surveys had been useless, too much interference from the canopy, but human eyes and human memory were creating a different kind of intelligence picture. They have a forward command post here. He indicated a position marked on their map. Bravo team confirmed it yesterday. Looks like a grown structure, some kind of biological building. Security? Asked Morrison. Heavy. At least 40 Zerathi. Plus some kind of organic defense systems. Living vines that react to movement. Spore pods that release toxins. Sergeant Mackenzie of the Canadian JTF-2 grinned. Sounds like Tuesday in the Amazon. Remember that time with the Colombian cartel and their guard plants? The ones that shot thorns? Rodriguez laughed quietly. Yeah, but these are probably worse. Definitely worse, Singh confirmed. But that's their primary communication node for this sector. We take it out. They lose coordination for hundreds of square kilometers. The coalition tried to hit targets like that with orbital strikes, Morrison pointed out. The canopy absorbed most of the energy, and the Zerathi just grew new structures. We're not going to blow it up, Singh replied. We're going to take it apart from the inside, like army ants with a carcass. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. No frontal assault, no massive firepower, just human cunning and the lessons learned in 1,000 forgotten skirmishes in Earth's jungles. 3 nights later, the Zerathi command post was in chaos. It started with the sentries. One by one, they simply disappeared. No energy discharge, no alarms. Just empty posts and fading pheromone trails that led nowhere. The hive mind buzzed with confusion. Enemies didn't just vanish guards without attacking. Then came the psychological warfare. Sounds in the darkness. Not alien sounds, but recordings of Zerathi death cries played from hidden speakers. The aliens' own pheromone markers used against them, creating false trails and phantom threats. By the time the main assault began, the defenders were already rattled. Echo team hit from the north, drawing attention with conventional weapons fire. The Zerathi rushed to respond, their training taking over. This was the kind of attack they understood, which is why they never saw Bravo team coming from below. The humans had spent 2 days digging a tunnel system that would have impressed their Vietnamese instructors. Rising up through the floor of the command post like vengeful spirits, they struck with knives and wire, eliminating communication nodes and officers before melting back into the earth. The organic defense systems, programmed to respond to above-ground threats, never triggered. The living structure itself became confused, its bioneural networks severed at key points by soldiers who had studied the weaknesses of similar organisms on Earth. In 20 minutes, the command post was neutralized. Not destroyed. That would have brought immediate retaliation. Instead, it was left standing but useless. A monument to the Zerathi's first real defeat on Verdania 7. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. For months, the Zerathi had been the undisputed masters of the jungle. Now they were being hunted by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't track, and couldn't understand. Back at Coalition Command, the monitoring stations were registering impossible readings. Zerathi units across the planet were reporting contact with ghost soldiers who struck without warning and vanished without a trace. Supply lines were being cut, communication nodes falling silent, and for the first time, Zerathi morale was beginning to crack. Commander Vexnor stared at the tactical display in disbelief. This can't be right. One company of humans couldn't possibly be causing this much disruption. The data is accurate, Luminarch Prime confirmed, its crystalline form pulsing with interest. In 15 days, the human forces have eliminated approximately 300 Zerathi troops and disrupted operations across 7 grid sectors. How? Demanded General Korthax. Our best troops couldn't survive more than 72 hours in that jungle. Admiral Chen, who had been observing from Earth's embassy station, spoke up via hologram. Because your best troops tried to conquer the jungle, ours became part of it. The coalition observers watched footage from one of the few surveillance drones that had managed to record a human ambush. The quality was poor, the jungle canopy and atmospheric interference saw to that, but it was enough to show the terrifying efficiency of Earth's warriors. They're not even using advanced technology, Subcommander Telos observed. Those appear to be chemical projectile weapons and, are those blade weapons? Technology fails in the jungle, Chen replied. Power cells drain in the humidity. Energy weapons create vapor clouds that give away positions. Complex electronics malfunction. But a sharp edge? A simple rifle? Those always work. On Verdania 7th, the war was entering a new phase. The Zerathi, realizing they faced a different kind of enemy, began adapting their tactics. They moved in larger groups, established overlapping fields of pheromone communication, and started burning sections of jungle to deny the humans cover. It didn't help. Major Singh watched from a hidden observation post as Zerathi flamers turned a square kilometer of jungle into ash. As soon as the aliens moved on, satisfied they had cleared the area, his soldiers were already moving through the smoking ruins, using the heated air to mask their signatures and the ash to obscure their movements. "They still don't understand," he murmured to Morrison, who lay beside him. "You can't burn away knowledge. You can't incinerate experience." Speaking of experience, Morrison replied, pointing to movement in the distance. "Looks like they're massing for something big." Singh studied the buildup through his field glasses. Hundreds of Zerathi were gathering, far more than any previous formation. Heavy bioweapons were being grown, massive organic artillery pieces that could launch spore bombs capable of clearing entire grid squares. "They're going to try to steamroll through the whole sector," Singh analyzed. "Probably figured out our base is somewhere in this area." "Do we evacuate?" Morrison asked. Singh smiled. "Why? They're doing exactly what we want. Concentrating their forces, abandoning their dispersed positions. Rodriguez, get me all team leaders on encrypted comms. It's time to show them why human military doctrine includes a little thing called defeat in detail." The battle that followed would go down in coalition military history as the Verdanian Miracle, though the humans who fought it would have called it something simpler. Tuesday. As the Zerathi force advanced in its massive formation, Earth soldiers struck from every direction simultaneously. Not at the main force. That would have been suicide. Instead, they hit every supporting element, every supply line, every reinforcement column trying to join the advance. Delta Team, composed mainly of Brazilian CIGS commandos, turned a river crossing into a killing field. Using the water itself as a weapon, they channeled Zerathi forces into pre-selected ambush zones where improvised explosives and crossfire turned the aliens' numbers against them. Foxtrot teams set the jungle itself against the invaders. Led by a Malaysian tracker who could read the forest like a book, they triggered controlled avalanches, directed hostile wildlife toward Zerathi positions, and used the terrain's natural hazards as weapons. But it was Juliet team that delivered the masterstroke. While the Zerathi focused on the human attacks around them, Sergeant Mbeki and his squad had spent 3 days infiltrating behind enemy lines. Their target wasn't military, it was biological. The Zerathi's organic technology required specific nutrients to function, nutrients they extracted from certain jungle plants. Mbeki's team introduced a engineered bacteria, nothing exotic, just a modified version of a common Earth agricultural pest, into the Zerathi's cultivation areas. Within hours, their bioweapons began failing, starved of essential compounds. The massive assault ground to a halt as organic artillery pieces withered and died. Communication nodules failed to function. Even the Zerathi's natural camouflage began to falter as their bodies diverted resources to survival. And through it all, the humans kept striking. Swift, brutal, and precise. They had turned the entire jungle into a weapon, and they wielded it with the expertise of 10,000 years of evolution. By dawn, the Zerathi force was in full retreat. They had lost a third of their number, not to superior technology or overwhelming firepower, but to 120 humans who understood a fundamental truth. In the jungle, adaptation was everything. The hive mind reeled from the defeat. Across Verdania 7, Zerathi forces began pulling back to fortified positions, abandoning the deep jungle to an enemy they couldn't comprehend. For a species that had conquered worlds, it was a humiliation beyond measure. At Coalition Command, the atmosphere had changed from mockery to stunned silence. The tactical displays showed something that should have been impossible. A single company of primitive humans had broken the Zerathi's hold on an entire planetary sector. How many casualties have the humans taken? Korthax asked, his 6 eyes fixed on the data. According to their reports, 7 wounded, none killed, Luminarch Prime responded. Impossible, Vexnor stated flatly. They must be lying. Admiral Chen shook her head. Every casualty is documented, Commander. We don't hide our losses. We just don't take many when we fight on our terms. But they're just humans, Telos protested. No enhanced genetics, no cybernetic implants, no psionic abilities. How can baseline biological entities achieve this? Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. Because, Sub-Commander, we evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We didn't develop natural weapons because we learned to make our own. We didn't grow armor because we learned to use our environment as protection. And we didn't need a hive mind because we developed something far more powerful, the ability to think, adapt and overcome as individuals working toward a common goal. On Verdania's 7th, Major Singh stood at the edge of recently captured territory. The jungle stretched endlessly before him, and somewhere out there, the Zerathi were regrouping, rethinking, preparing for the next phase of the war. Think they'll be back? Rodriguez asked, joining him. Count on it, Singh replied. But that's fine. We've proven our point. Humanity belongs in this fight. As if in response to his words, the encrypted communication system crackled to life. New orders from Coalition Command. Reinforcements were being sent, not Coalition forces, but more humans. 2 full battalions of Earth's finest jungle warfare specialists. The Zerathi had awakened something they didn't understand. For millions of years, humanity's ancestors had survived by being the most adaptable, most cunning, most relentlessly efficient predators on their planet. Now, among the stars, that legacy was about to be written in alien blood. The jungle war for Verdania's 7th had only just begun. The Coalition reinforcement ships dropped out of hyperspace above Verdania's 7th in perfect formation. 20 vessels, carrying the pride of the Galactic Coalition's military forces. But for the first time in the war, they weren't coming to rescue a failing operation. They were coming to support a winning one. And they were following human command. General Patricia Volkov of the Russian Spetsnaz stood on the bridge of the lead transport, watching the planet below. The Coalition had finally understood what Earth's military leaders had known from the beginning. Conventional warfare was obsolete on Verdania's 7th. This battle would be won by those who could master unconventional tactics. General, Commander Vex Nor approached, his 4 legs clicking on the metal deck. His tone held none of the dismissive arrogance from weeks before. My warriors are ready to deploy. Where would you have us? Volkov studied the tactical display, where human positions were marked across the northern continent. In 2 months, Earth's forces had liberated nearly a third of the planet, not through massive battles or orbital bombardments, but through 1,000 small victories that bled the Zerathi dry. Your heavy troops will establish firebase positions here and here. She indicated 2 locations. You'll provide artillery support and quick reaction forces. But, Commander, she turned to face the towering alien. Your troops will follow human tactical leadership on the ground. No exceptions. 2 months ago, such a demand would have sparked outrage. Now, Vexnor simply nodded. He had watched the footage, studied the after-action reports. The humans had earned their authority in blood and brilliance. On the surface, Major Singh received word of the reinforcements with mixed feelings. More troops meant more firepower, but it also meant managing coalition forces who weren't trained for jungle warfare. He gathered his expanded command staff, now including officers from the recently arrived human battalions. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to attempt something that's never been done in coalition history, he began. We're going to teach alien forces how to fight like humans. Captain Morrison, promoted to tactical coordinator, pulled up a holographic display. The Zerathi have adapted to our tactics. They're avoiding the deep jungle, concentrating in fortified biostructures. They've also started using aerial spore clouds to deny us concealment. Smart, admitted Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Washington of the Australian SASR. But not smart enough. What do we know about their main hive complex? Located here, Morrison highlighted a massive structure in the southern mountains. It's where they coordinate their entire planetary defense. The coalition tried to crack it 3 times before we arrived. Lost thousands of troops. They tried to assault it directly, Singh noted. We're going to do something different. We're going to make them come to us. The strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of attacking the hive complex, human forces began systematically destroying everything that supported it. Supply lines vanished into the jungle, never to emerge. Water sources were contaminated with harmless but foul-tasting bacteria. Power generation nodes, the massive photosynthetic structures the Zerathi used to fuel their technology, were burned with such regularity that the aliens had to post significant forces to guard them. And that's when the coalition forces proved their worth. Vexnor's warriors, guided by human spotters, turned their plasma cannons into precision instruments. When Zerathi forces massed to protect vital infrastructure, coalition firepower eliminated them from beyond the jungle's reach. The combination of human stealth and alien technology created a synergy neither species could achieve alone. But it was the psychological warfare that truly turned the tide. Sergeant Elena Petrov, a Russian psychological operations specialist, had studied the captured Zerathi communication nodes. The hive mind structure had a weakness. It transmitted fear and uncertainty as efficiently as it transmitted orders. We don't need to break their entire network, she explained to the command staff. We just need to poison it, make them doubt their own perceptions. Using captured pheromone glands and biotransmitters, human forces began broadcasting false signals into the Zerathi network. Phantom attacks, contradictory orders, and most devastatingly, the death screams of Zerathi commanders recorded and replayed across multiple frequencies. The effect was immediate. Zerathi units began firing on each other in the confusion. Entire sectors reported attacks that never happened. The hive mind, evolved for perfect coordination, became a liability as panic spread faster than any physical assault. 3 weeks into the combined offensive, the Zerathi made a fatal error. Desperate to stop the human advance, they committed their reserves to a massive counteroffensive aimed at retaking the northern territories. Colonel Thompson, now serving as liaison between Earth forces and Coalition Command, watched the enemy movement on the orbital feeds. They're all in, he reported to General Volkov. Everything they've got is moving north. Then it's time, Volkov decided. She turned to the assembled commanders, human and alien alike. Operation Prometheus is authorized. While the Zerathi reserves battled human forces in the north, forces that melted away like morning mist whenever seriously pressed, the true assault began in the south. 200 human special operators, the best Earth had to offer, had spent weeks infiltrating toward the hive complex. They moved in small teams, sometimes taking days to cover a few kilometers, leaving no trace of their passage. Now, as the Zerathi focused their attention northward, these ghosts converged on their target. Master Sergeant Jack Chen, a third-generation American Special Forces operator, led the primary assault element. His team included soldiers from 14 different nations, each chosen for specific skills. As they reached the outer perimeter of the hive complex, he marveled at the structure before them. The Zerathi hive was a marvel of biological engineering. Towering spires of living tissue reached toward the sky, pulsing with bioluminescent signals. Defensive organisms patrolled the approaches, creatures bred specifically to detect and eliminate intruders. Remember, Chen whispered into his comm, we're not here to destroy it, we're here to take it. The assault began with whispers, not explosions. Human infiltrators slipped past defensive screens using techniques perfected in the favelas of Brazil and the mountains of Afghanistan. They moved through the organic corridors like antibodies in a bloodstream, undetected and purposeful. When the Zerathi finally realized their hive was compromised, it was too late. Human forces had already reached the Central Coordination Cluster, the biological supercomputer that managed the entire hive mind network. And that's when Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a Japanese xenobiologist attached to the military, proved that human warfare wasn't just about violence. It was about understanding. She had spent weeks studying captured Zerathi biology, learning their neural patterns and chemical communications. Now, standing before the exposed neural cluster, she deployed humanity's most devastating weapon, adaptation. Instead of destroying the cluster, she reprogrammed it. Using a combination of synthetic pheromones and carefully modulated electrical impulses, she convinced the hive mind that the humans weren't invaders. They were a specialized defensive caste the Zerathi had developed themselves. The confusion that followed made previous psychological operations look like gentle persuasion. Zerathi forces across the planet received conflicting orders, some to attack humans, others to protect them. The hive mind tried to correct the error, but every attempt only spread the contamination further. Within hours, the Zerathi command structure collapsed entirely. Individual aliens, freed from the hive mind's control for the first time in their evolutionary history, reacted with panic and confusion. Some fled into the jungle, others surrendered to the nearest forces they could find, often human patrols who accepted their capitulation with professional calm. Back at Coalition Command, the impossible was being confirmed. Verdania's Seventh was falling, not to the mighty fleets and advanced technology of the Coalition, but to several hundred humans who had turned the planet's hostile environment into their greatest weapon. Luminarch Prime's crystalline form resonated with something that might have been awe. In 3 months, humanity has achieved what the combined Coalition forces couldn't accomplish in 3 years. The casualty figures are even more impressive, added Sub-Commander Telos, his earlier dismissiveness completely gone. Total human losses: 43 killed, 112 wounded. Zerathi losses: estimated at over 15,000 eliminated, 30,000 captured or surrendered. Admiral Chen, still participating via hologram from Earth, maintained her professional composure despite the pride swelling in her chest. The jungle warfare was just the beginning. What matters is what we've learned about combining human adaptability with Coalition technology. Agreed, Vex Nor interjected. His species had suffered the most casualties in previous attempts to take Verdania the Seven. Now he understood why. We've been fighting wars the same way for millennia. Perhaps it's time we learned new methods. On Verdania's Seventh, the cleanup operations were beginning. Human forces, working alongside Coalition troops who now followed their lead without question, secured the remaining Zerathi positions. The enemy's biotechnology, no longer controlled by the corrupted hive mind, began shutting down or reverting to benign states. Major Singh stood in the captured hive complex, watching Coalition scientists work alongside human specialists to understand the technology they'd captured. The war for Verdania Seventh was effectively over, but the implications were just beginning. "You realize what you've done?" Colonel Thompson asked, joining him. "You've changed the entire dynamic of the war. The Coalition can't look at humanity as junior partners anymore." Singh nodded slowly. "We proved something important. Not that humans are superior. We're not. But we're different. We evolved in chaos, learned to find patterns in randomness, developed the ability to turn any situation to our advantage." Around them, young soldiers from Earth worked side by side with alien warriors who towered over them. The size difference didn't matter anymore. Respect had replaced mockery. Partnership had replaced condescension. 3 days later, the official ceremony took place in the same council chamber where humanity had been mocked months before. But this time, the human delegation didn't sit at the far end of the table. They stood at its center, accepting the Coalition's highest military honors. General Volkov, representing Earth's combined forces, stood before the assembled leaders of 100 worlds. Her dress uniform bore the simple ribbons of Earth's conflicts, wars the aliens had once dismissed as primitive tribal squabbles. Now they understood those conflicts had been the forge that created the galaxy's most adaptable warriors. "The victory on Verdania Seventh belongs to all of us," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Human cunning and Coalition firepower proved that our different strengths, when combined, are greater than the sum of their parts. Luminarch Prime's response resonated through the chamber. Earth has proven itself not just as a member of the Coalition, but as a leader in it. We propose the immediate establishment of joint training facilities where coalition forces can learn human unconventional warfare tactics. Seconded, Vexnor announced immediately. My warriors have much to learn about flexibility and adaptation. As the ceremony continued, Admiral Chen noticed something that made her smile. The young human lieutenant, serving as her aide, was deep in conversation with a Krellian warrior, using hand gestures to explain some aspect of jungle warfare. The alien was listening intently, occasionally asking questions through a translator. This was the real victory, she realized. Not just winning a battle, but changing how the coalition thought about warfare itself. The war against the Zerathi swarm would continue on other worlds, in other environments. But now humanity had a seat at the strategic table, their voices heard and respected. The primitives who used projectile weapons had taught the galaxy's most advanced civilizations a simple truth. Technology was just a tool. Victory came from the mind that wielded it. 6 months later, the first integrated coalition human combat unit deployed to the desert world of Kepler 442b. The Zerathi had adapted their tactics to avoid jungle environments, choosing instead to fortify positions in the endless dunes. They thought they were safe from human warfare techniques. They were wrong. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, now an instructor at the Coalition's new asymmetric warfare school, watched the footage of human desert warfare specialists teaching silicon-based Arcturians how to use sand as camouflage. What environment are we training for next? Her assistant asked. Rodriguez grinned. Asteroids. The Zerathi have some mining operations in the Belkin field. They think zero-gravity environments will stop us. She pulled up files on Earth's space forces. Time to show them that humans don't just adapt to environments, we master them. Across the galaxy, the word spread through military channels and civilian networks alike. The humans were coming. The species that had been mocked as primitive had become the Coalition's most feared special forces. And on 1,000 worlds, in 1,000 different environments, the enemies of the Coalition learned what the Zerathi had discovered on Verdania 7. In any environment, in any condition, against any foe, humanity would find a way to win, not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through the simple, terrifying ability to turn any battlefield to their advantage. The jungle had been just the beginning. The galaxy itself was about to become humanity's training ground.